makes some nations rise stronger after a crisis while others collapse? That's the central question Jared Diamond explores in Upheaval. Turning points for nations in crisis. In this video, we'll break down the book's biggest ideas, how countries confront disasters, why some succeed, and what lessons the past offers for the crises shaping our world today. Part 1. Diamond's big idea: nations behave like people in crisis. Diamond is famous for blending history, geography, anthropology, and biology. But Upheaval adds psychology. He argues that countries respond to crises much like individuals do. To build this framework, Diamond looks at personal crises. First, his own professional struggles and the tragic Coconut Grove fire in 1942. Out of these stories comes a 12-factor map for navigating crises. Here are the key coping mechanisms he says apply to both people and nations. 1. Acknowledging the crisis. 2. Taking responsibility to act. 3. Honest self-appraisal. 4. Separating what must change from what must stay the same. 5. Learning from role models. And 6. Holding on to core values that cannot be compromised. This becomes the toolkit he uses to analyze how countries handle upheaval. Part 2. How nations survive upheaval. 6 case studies. Diamond studies 6 countries that face severe crises, some sudden, some internal, and some slow-moving. We'll summarize each one. Finland, the Winter War. In 1939, the Soviet Union attacked Finland. Outnumbered and outgunned, Finland should have fallen. Instead, it fought with fierce realism. It honestly assessed what it could and couldn't do, and accepted that survival required selective change. Finland preserved its democracy but adopted a careful, even controversial foreign policy toward the Soviet Union, what critics called Finlandization. By focusing on national survival, it succeeded. Japan, the Meiji Restoration. In 1853, Commodore Perry forced Japan to open its borders. Japan faced a stark choice: change or perish. The Meiji Restoration became one of history's most dramatic national transformations. Japan borrowed and adapted foreign models, technology, education, government structure after analyzing which ones fit Japanese culture and which didn't. It was selective change at its best, and set Japan on the path to becoming a global power. Chile democracy to dictatorship and back. Chile's political crisis spiraled in the early 1970s. Extremism on both sides paralyzed the system and opened the door to the brutal Pinochet dictatorship. Diamond asks, how can a stable democracy collapse so quickly into violence? Eventually, Chile rebuilt democracy, this time selectively, integrating economic elements from the Pinochet years with political values from the Allende era. A painful but instructive recovery. Indonesia building a nation out of hundreds of islands. Indonesia's crisis erupted in 1965, with a coup and counter-coup, followed by mass killings of suspected communists. It is the youngest nation in Diamond's study, huge, fragmented, diverse. What allowed Indonesia to stabilize? It slowly built a new national identity, a unifying factor Diamond considers essential for long-term survival. Germany facing its past. Germany's crisis wasn't sudden. It unfolded over decades as the country confronted the moral and physical destruction left by Nazi rule. Honest self-appraisal was the key. Chancellor Willy Brandt's 1970 kneeling at the Warsaw Ghetto Memorial became a symbol of Germany's willingness to face its past directly. By combining self-reflection with strategic patience, Germany rebuilt itself and regained international trust. Australia, who are we? For generations, it saw itself as a British outpost, white, English, European. But geography said otherwise. Australia was in Asia, surrounded by Asian neighbors. Keeping old assumptions became impossible. The result? A long process of selective change, including ending the restrictive White Australia policy, which opened the door to a more inclusive identity and multicultural society. Part 3. Crises happening right now. Diamond ends the book by examining crises that are still unfolding with outcomes none of us can predict. For example, modern Japan faces a demographic disaster. One of the world's lowest birth rates, an aging population, the highest national debt among rich nations, and politically, Japan still struggles with honest reflection about its wartime actions, affecting relations with China and Korea. In the United States, Diamond warns of 4 major threats: political polarization and the breakdown of compromise, low voter turnout, inequality and declining economic mobility, and underinvestment in public goods like education. He believes polarization is the most dangerous because it undermines the very ability to solve problems. Then Diamond extends his crisis framework beyond nations to the entire human species. Humanity faces 4 existential dangers: nuclear weapons, climate change, resource depletion, and massive global inequality. But here's the problem. The world lacks shared identity, shared history, and shared governance. In other words, it has the least ability to solve global-scale crises, even though they're the most threatening. Part 4, can we change before disaster strikes? Diamond ends with a haunting question. Do we need catastrophe to change? Or can we learn from the past and adjust before it's too late? His answer is cautious but hopeful. History shows that nations can adapt if they acknowledge problems honestly, take responsibility, protect core values, and make selective changes. The same applies to all of us today. If leaders and citizens choose to learn from history, the crises of tomorrow might become turning points rather than endings. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of Upheaval, hit like, subscribe, and let us know which book we should cover next.